Like everybody, I wait the system to start. Okay, it looks nice. Thank you very much to the organizer to give me a chance to speak about the life course construction of old age poverty. Does it work? Yes. In historical perspective, let me remind that our ancestors until recently lived in societies of mass poverty and with few differences concerning the elderly. It's with the Industrial Revolution that we observed a growing number of old workers with the body destroyed by years of hard work in the factories or coal mine, and with the children spread by the migration. That's what led to the first initiatives to create a welfare state in Bismarckian Germany or in Denmark. After the Second World War, we had a huge wave of creation of welfare states and a period of enthusiasm where we thought that poverty could disappear. And in fact, as late as 1979, in a country like Switzerland, when you made a survey of the elderly living condition, you have almost half of them living with incomes below the poverty line defined by the public welfare institution at that time. And it was the case of 80% of the oldest old women, the women aged 80 and more. And it's because in that kind of system you need a full life of cotization during 40 years to have access to a full pension. And in 79 it was not still the case for a lot of persons. Then progressively the systems acquired the maturity and poverty decreased among the elderly, as you can see. For the European Union, on the figures, we start in a bad year, 2008, but the curve below in green is the one of the 65 and more, with first less poverty that among the active population and even more less than among the children. And it's a very bad sign for the future, by the way. And a decreasing trend until 2015. So it's a period during less and less scholars were interested in old age poverty. It's a period where we had really few studies about this issue. And some politicians even talked that by 2030 we could end with old age poverty. It means 15 million people moving out of poverty. The reality is that during the last 10 years, from 2015, we won, if I can use this horrible term, 4 million more per elderly in the European Union. So we are not going in the right direction since more or less a decade. There is a growing sorry, I go too fast. This is the first reason to be worried about the future. There are two more reasons, two double first. First, at the macro level, it's the reforms in the pension system and the budgetary cuts. And second, at the micro level, thanks to the research on life course, we know that some ages of life or some life accidents are threatening the socioeconomic condition of the elderly much later in the life course. And when we compare the life course of the current generation of older people with the younger generation, we have the feeling that these traits are increasing. So let's move to this literature on life course construction. Most of the research are about health, about the life course construction of health issue in old age. Really a minority about socioeconomic condition and social isolation. The most influential theory is the theory of cumulative advantage, cumulative disadvantage, that has been implemented in life course research by Dale Danefre, who defined it as the systemic tendency for inter-individual divergence in a given characteristic over time. So you take children from the same neighborhood in the school with few difference, but difference growing with age. In the United States, you don't have a more heterogeneous group in the population than the 60-75. After differential mortality decreased to heterogeneity. As you explained, it's different in Europe for reasons that hopefully will emerge from my talk. Then you have a debate. As you can see, Dale Danafer considers that after 30 years of research and hundreds of publications, the theory is confirmed. But you have Glenn Elder, who is also a very prominent figure in life course research, who said the opposite. By the way, I met both of them. Probably they will not spend a vacation together, but they are not enemies. It's not a stupid conflict of ego or something like. You have two prominent scholars. They have read more or less the same set of studies, and they reach different conclusions. Why? First, the disagreement is partial. About the accumulation of advantage, it's clear. There is nothing avoiding Elon Musk to become Elon Musk, unfortunately. It's different if you look at the dark side. We are speaking here about poverty. And it's better to change slide, by the way. Yes, the two authors acknowledge status maintenance, life course continuities. This is jargon, but it means that you are poor and you remain poor, concretely. But you don't become destitute. You rarely become homeless. You rarely die from hunger because there is the safety net of the welfare state. So the accumulation of disadvantage is interrupted, if I can say. So there is an asymmetry between the two processes, but this is also a substantial difference. The accumulation of advantage is an accumulation of opportunities that you are able to capture. The accumulation of disadvantage is an accumulation of risk, and I will speak a lot about the management of this risk across the life course. Now, we know from this literature that some ages of lives and some events are more important than others. For life course sociology, life course epidemiology, developmental psychology, childhood is a critical life period. We do not really arrive to disentangle between the fact, the social reproduction, let's say you are poor children in a poor family, and the concentration of adverse health events among the poor children. But whatever, poor children in poor family tend to perform poorly in the educational system. And this is decisive because the educational system will provide you with life course relevant resource. If I take the case of Switzerland, we made survey in 1979, 1994, 2011. The proportion of elderly with a low level of education decreased from 66 to 18%. But 3 times consecutively, having a low level of education multiplied by 4, you chance to face old age poverty. So it remains the causality, or the association remains a constant across time. And also, when we include in statistical models the difference in the access to education of women versus men, the over-poverty of women is completely captured. So this is really an important element. Now there are a growing discussion about the challenge of the tripartition of life. Child, you go to school; adult, you work and you settle a family; retired, you take some rest. Or maybe you stay active, we will see. The transition to adulthood appears more and more to the researcher as a new critical life period. If you do not arrive to move from one normative role of children to an adult with a stable work, you can be scared for the rest of your life and highly at risk of becoming poor. The transition to retirement also become very complicated and so on. So this is not just a question of social factors and human agency. It's also an institutional element. It's the favorite topic of what is called the European or the German School of Life course, the institutionalization of the life course with this tripartition and so on. But it's not just that. You have here a list of the life risks that are susceptible to lead to old age poverty in adulthood, leaving the parental home, childbirth, divorce, widowhood, unemployment, retirement. You can add the health problems, and you see that all these accidents that can happen in your life are more or less managed by the welfare state, depending on the type of welfare state, of course. And so the welfare state can help you to face this life accident and to continue to accumulate a life course capital that you will use to end your life in dignity, or to have the access to a decent pension. It's more or less the same. So there are a lot of literature trying to establish the effectiveness of the different welfare states, and you probably all know the typology of Esping-Andersen in that point of view. But in fact, we believe less and less in this typology, although I have a great admiration for Esping-Andersen. It's not the point. You have now what I call it a new German school with Bernard Ebbinghaus and Katja Moring. I read the papers. I have a great admiration for them, but it's a platonic love. I never met them. But Bernard Ebbinghaus has a very nice conclusion of very extensive studies. Minimum income provision of public pension system matters most for poverty risk, while the overall pension architecture has an impact on reproducing inequality in old age acquired during working life and in fact already during school attendance. What does it mean? For example, you have the Netherlands, who are not a social democratic welfare state, but they have a relatively high minimum pension, and it's very efficient against old age poverty. So you see different variation within the same type of welfare state. But the most important source of variation within a given welfare state are the career trajectories that Katja Moring studied using the retrospective biographies collected by SHARE, the Survey on Health, Aging and Retirement, more than 62,000 biographies across all Europe. And she observed that these career trajectories, that are career of cotization to the pension system, to various pension systems, are diverging within the same welfare types. If you compare Finland and Sweden, those two countries do not have the same economic history in the second half of the 20th century, so not the same phase of economic growth, growth of salary, growth of contribution, and that is very important, they don't have the same history of return of the woman on the formal labor market in terms of timing and intensity. And that is a story that you can apply to all the welfare states because it changed a lot. At that point, I go back. So you have two important explanations that appears here. And can I go back? Yes, okay. You have welfare states that are efficient to manage this life risk and to authorize you to continue to contribute to your pension. In that case, they have less problem later when the people are reaching old age. Otherwise, if you have been inefficient during adulthood, you need to have normalizing and repairing institutions. Switzerland, for example, have a system of supplementary benefits where you receive an help to be just above the poverty threshold. But you have to ask it, what creates a huge difference between French-speaking and German-speaking Switzerland in terms of non-take-up. We can see that better when we consider the three groups particularly at risk of poverty. The blue collars, because they were invited to take early retirement to preserve the job of the young workers and to have incomplete career. In most of the cases, they are compensated. Immigrants, they are rarely compensated. And women. You have this, I cite this horrible title, which is unfortunately so true, to prevent women from being only a husband away from old age poverty. This is typical of conservative welfare state who invented solutions that are not necessarily coherent, that are often incoherent with the political ethos of their welfare state. As soon as 1977, Germany, Western Germany at that time, managed a law to preserve the rights of the divorced woman. And it showed to be relatively efficient. Belgium is terrible from that point of view, my native country. So there is a huge variety beyond the types of welfare state that are due to the career trajectories and to this normalizing and repairing institution. Last slide. What we are missing now is really to understand the aging trajectories. I mean, we have a long life course, but then in share you have also panel data where you follow the same individual each year. And we miss studies connecting life until 65 and who people are aging. There are only a few studies looking at that from a health point of view, but about poverty I found only 3 studies, 2 with aggregate data, 1 with individual level data comparing people with 6 years of distance. And we see that the elderly who are falling into poverty are illustrating the theory of accumulation of disadvantage. They are disproportionately people who have been blue collars and who had a low level of education. But we miss studies quite a lot. I was a little bit disappointed at the end of preparing my presentation, thinking that it is very theoretical and that people are suffering when they are poor, facing humiliation and so on. But I want to tell you the story of one of my brightest PhD students, who is now the director of an important humanitarian NGO. I'm very proud of my students. Julia Henke, she studied in a survey the people who answered, who were living with incomes before the poverty threshold, who answered to the question, do you have a problem making ends meet? And who, in a questionnaire of stress, answered yes or no if they are worried about arriving to pay their bills and so on. And this is not the same group. You have a lot of divergence. And among others, you have a group of women, of old women, who have been poor all their life. They are not worried because they know how to manage. And there are also some studies in countries as different as Denmark and United States telling that the oldest have the memory of the 1930s crisis, of the Second World War in Denmark and the years who follow that we call the golden age, but the first years were quite hard. And they use this memory to have a different culture of stoicism and management of the life course. And I exceeded from 45 seconds. I'm ashamed. Thank you so much.